Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for putting this conference together, Sarah, and for including IsoMetrix in it. And thank you, Liv, for covering about 50% of the content of my presentation, which is great, because I think that gives us an indication of the fact that some of the themes that we're covering are really important and we need to emphasize them from different point of view. I'm going to be talking to you about ESG from boardroom to operations. We work with clients to help them put together management systems for risks, particularly around ESG. So we're not consultants, but we see how our clients are addressing the ESG challenge and try to remain sustainable. So when we think of ESG for mining, there really is an association with sustainability, right? So I wanted to talk about sustainable mining and the fact that sustainable mining really is about the ability of the industry to navigate through a landscape of interconnected risks and opportunities while they create long-term sustainable value for the stakeholders. And that is really managing a number of the ESG aspects. So, all of our clients in mining, of course, work in an environment where it's really high risk and highly regulated, everyone on multi-site and multinational and multi-language and multicultural environments. And because of mining having a very direct impact on things such as environment and communities, they need to have an integrated risk mindset. This was one of the points that Liv made earlier. From a legacy point of view, mining has been accustomed to working pretty much in silos. And I think that also has traveled to the way that risks are being managed. So I think that this has been affected, the move to integrated thinking and integrated risk has been affected by three major shifts in the corporate world in the 21st century. And these have affected not only mining, but every other industry. So the first shift is the one from silo to integrated. Again, to Liv's point, silo thinking, silo operation, a silo way of sharing information. Companies have retained this legacy operation of not being able to share information across their functions, but also across the value chain with other collaborators. So that's a major shift. The next shift is one from a financial capital market system to an inclusive capital market system. And this goes to the fact that up to the 20th century, companies were really being measured in terms of their performance by financials. You look at the financial statements and you're either making a profit or and you're all good. The problem with that is that just giving a measure of financial is akin to driving a car by looking at your rear view mirror. You can see what happened in the past, but you can't see what's coming at you, and you can't steer the car to look at the new risks and the new opportunities. And that is why looking at a variety of other capitals to understand what's happening in the environment that you're facing is really, truly important. And the other shift has been one from shareholder primacy to stakeholder inclusiveness. The one story that I always use to illustrate this point is that when the Ford company 100 years ago made super profits, Henry Ford wanted to increase the wages of the workers who had created the value. The Dodge brothers were the shareholders of the company, and they took Ford to court to make him declare the profits as shareholder dividends. The worst part is that they won. So can you imagine floating the idea in this day and age of the benefits only being given to one set of stakeholders? That doesn't exist anymore. And essentially what that points to is a recognition that value extends beyond financial capital for all companies, not just mining. You may be familiar with this model. This is the octopus model of integrated reporting, which shows that all companies operate in ecosystems and they serve themselves with a variety of capitals And in their production of outputs, those outputs have outcomes, which are long-term consequences that have an impact on those same capitals that they use. Now, the mission of a company is not only to accrue and ameliorate one of those capitals, but to have a balanced approach. And if in the course of their operations they diminish one of the capitals, they need to have a plan to ameliorate that in the future. This is very well recognized by investors recently. So you get Goldman Sachs that has come out with a very bold statement saying that if you ignore sustainability, you are going to be worthless. And that is also because there's been a change in the perception and the valuation of value. If you look at all companies and all indices, this is just a depiction of the Standard & Poor's 500 market valuation. Over the past 40 years, you can see that value has flipped on its head. From market valuations of tangible assets being important to the valuation of intangible assets being more important. These intangible assets are things such as patents, know-how, intellectual capital, the ability to penetrate other geographies, brand, reputation, and of course, sustainability. So that ties in very nicely with the concept of ESG. Environmental and social governance is indeed one of the tangibles of market valuation and may attract investors in a different way. But also, what are the mega trends that have been driving ESG? And Liv mentioned some of those. Climate change being recognized as a top risk by the World Economic Forum, and that talks to the scarcity of resources, the fact that we are consuming resources at a faster rate than we can generate them. Increased social accountability, I just need to say one name there, Greta Thunberg, we all know about it. But in addition, is the expectations that a new set of stakeholders and workforce bring to the market. 2016 marked the year in which millennials became the dominant workforce. And the set of expectations, like Liv pointed out, is quite different. They want to work for companies with meaning, companies that are sustainable, and the industry needs to be and remain relevant to attract that kind of talent. Investor pressure, quite important as well. And we'll see a little bit more about that. And the speed of technology adoption, again, what Liv mentioned was quite important. In terms of investor pressure, poor ESG affects investment decisions. People are not going to invest in your company if you have a poor track record of governance. So it's quite important to define your strategy and manage ESG to create value, both from an internal point of view and an external point of view. Internally, it is very important to communicate, create education and awareness, and externally as well to remain attractive, but also to respond to the needs of the various stakeholders. So 3 things that we've seen our companies work with us do really well. Understand the difference between strategy and compliance when it comes to ESG, choose the right framework for their KPIs, and do what they need to do to embed ESG as an operational and corporate discipline. I've seen some of her previous presentations. You had a lady talking on governance before, and she pointed out, she made this point very well. ESG needs to be embedded in strategy. It cannot be a mindless tick box exercise. If we do that, we lose the entire value. We all know that what gets measured gets managed, so it's really important to choose the right operational and strategic KPIs and have the right information to be able to make decisions. This requires visibility, integrated visibility, intelligence, and insights, and we are providing those tools to those clients. In terms of choosing the right framework, we know there's a plethora of frameworks out there, and I think it is important for each company to determine according to their strategy, what is it that works for them. This is not something that applies only to mining, but to every other organization. When we work with clients, we like to engage with them from a risk-centric point of view, because at the end of the day, risks and they may manifest in different areas of the business. but they continue to be risks. In terms of visibility, we give them the tools that allow them to see where risks may be, filtering, sorting information to understand and make different decisions, and having the ability to draw relationships that may not be apparent in the data that they have. We also provide some tools for them to do interactive assessments of the risks. And one of the examples, one of our clients has been using these metrics, which are primarily operational, to put together their maiden sustainability report. And now they have a baseline where they're able to track their progress over time, but as well they've been able to go to rating services and increase their ranking on a number of measures to make themselves more attractive to stakeholders. So in closing, just managing your ESG risks allows you to unlock value, reduces negative consequences, and builds your brand. And if there are any questions, you can connect with me by email, but thank you and stay safe.
Brilliant. Thank you very, very much, Cecilia.